Sophia choked back a sob, the cheap fabric of the borrowed dress scratching against her skin. She was about to marry a man older than her own father. It felt like something ripped straight out of a nightmare, not her real life. But desperation clawing at her family left no room for dreams, only survival. Just hours before the ceremony, the memories came flooding back, sharp and bitter. Life in Hollow Creek, West Virginia, was a relentless grind. Sophia had grown up in a cramped, drafty bungalow, clinging precariously to a hillside, where the scent of coal dust and damp earth never quite left the air. Her family, her father John, her mother Mary, and her younger brother Alex, were caught in a cycle of poverty as unforgiving as the Appalachian winters. John's hands were permanently calloused, his back stooped from years of thankless odd jobs. Some weeks he fixed leaky roofs for neighbors. Other weeks he loaded trucks down at the depot, if work was even available, which it usually wasn't. His cough, that deep rattling sound, only seemed to grow worse each year. Mary, her eyes perpetually shadowed with fatigue, took in mending. She hunched over a rattling old sewing machine late into the night, the meager glow of a bare bulb illuminating her strained face. But the few dollars she earned barely covered the essentials. Cheap bread, potatoes, maybe some ground beef once a week if John got lucky with a job. Luxuries unthinkable. Sophia, the eldest, knew hunger intimately. She was barely 16 when she first started pushing her small portion of supper toward Alex with a forced smile. "I'm not really hungry tonight, ate late." Alex, thin and prone to colds that sank deep into his chest, needed it more. She'd watch him eat, her own stomach aching, then retreat to the porch swing, staring at the dark, brooding mountains surrounding their town. She longed for a day when worry wasn't the main course at every meal. A day when her family wouldn't have to count every single penny like they were precious gems. But opportunity in Hollow Creek was a cruel joke. Most young people fled to Charleston or Pittsburgh the moment they could scrape together bus fare. The ones who stayed clung to scraps of work wherever they could find it. Sophia and Alex tried everything, knocking on doors, filling out applications at the diner, the gas station, the struggling hardware store, but it was always the same refrain. "We ain't hiring," or "Sorry, need someone with more experience." "We'll manage, Soph," John would rasp, trying to sound reassuring, "long as we stick together." But Sophia saw the truth. The hope was draining from his eyes, the lines deepening on Mary's face. If something didn't change, their lives would remain stuck in this bleak, endless loop of just getting by. Always one unexpected bill away from disaster. She felt the walls closing in, the weight of poverty pressing down on her chest, suffocating every dream before it could even take flight. And yet, despite everything, John and Mary clung fiercely to one belief. Education was the ladder out of the hollow. "You study hard, kids," Mary would say, voice thin but determined. "That diploma is your ticket out." Sophia grabbed onto those words like a drowning woman clutching a life raft. She buried herself in books, her sharp mind a refuge from the bleakness around her. And it paid off. A partial scholarship and loans allowed her to attend state college for 2 years, studying business. She fueled herself with visions of starting her own small enterprise, anything to pull her family out of the mire. The campus felt like another planet. Bustling lecture halls, libraries overflowing with knowledge, students whose biggest worries were term papers instead of overdue bills. Sophia thrived. She dreamed of spreadsheets and profit margins, of finally giving her parents a life free from constant fear. But reality struck like a hammer when she came back home. The decent jobs in the nearby city were locked tight, reserved for those with connections or family money. Her associate degree, earned through sleepless nights and pennies scraped together, suddenly felt like worthless paper. Defeated, she returned to Hollow Creek, her dreams packed away with her worn textbooks. She landed a job as a cashier at the only grocery store in town, the Save-A-Lot, with its flickering fluorescent lights and perpetually sticky floors. Shift after weary shift, she forced smiles for customers. The jingle of coins in her till became a cruel reminder of how far she was from her goals. The vibrant girl who left for college felt like a ghost now, replaced by someone going through the motions, her future stretching ahead as bleak as the cracked pavement outside. Alex wasn't faring any better. He'd finished high school, smart kid, quick hands, but without college or trade school, all he could find was sporadic, back-breaking labor. Unloading trucks in the pre-dawn chill, shoveling snow in the bitter winters, the shadow of poverty clung to him, a stigma that scared off employers and anyone who might otherwise offer him a chance. Sophia saw the frustration in his eyes each time he came home, shoulders slumped. It ain't fair, Soph, he'd mutter, fists clenched. We work hard. We ain't lazy. Why won't nobody give us a chance? Her heart ached for him, for both of them. Sophia had a quiet, striking beauty. Long chestnut hair tumbling over her shoulders, gray eyes with an unnerving depth of kindness. But beauty didn't pay bills. In Hollow Creek, it only invited pity or scorn. Local boys looked right past her, seeing only the rundown house and threadbare clothes. Or worse, they whispered about her family's debts. Shame about John and Mary's girl. Pretty thing, but who'd take on that whole family? No dowry, nothing but debt. Once, a boy from the next town, Scott, had asked her out. They walked by the creek, talking, laughing. For a moment, Sophia dared to hope. But a week later, silence. Through the grapevine, she heard what he'd told his sister. She's nice, real pretty, but man, I just can't handle that kind of baggage. The casual cruelty hit her like a blow. She went home, locked herself in her room, and cried until she had no strength left. Alex faced the same rejection. Girls turned cold when they realized he was that Miller boy from the peeling house on the edge of town. Sometimes they'd sit together on the sagging porch steps, watching the stars glitter in the vast, indifferent sky. We ain't less than them, Soph, Alex would insist quietly. We just got dealt a bad hand. She would nod, leaning her head on his shoulder, but inside she felt the dread. That loneliness might be her only companion. Then one sweltering afternoon, he walked into the Save-A-Lot. Michael Harrison. He looked late 60s, maybe even 70s. A shock of neatly combed silver hair, a face etched with deep lines like a roadmap of a long life, and eyes, startlingly blue, sharp, observant. He came in almost daily, usually late afternoons when the store was quiet. He bought simple things, bread, cheese, milk. Always paid with crisp bills. Unlike most locals, he'd leave a generous tip in the plastic cup by Sophia's register, $10, sometimes $20. For your trouble, my dear, he'd murmur, his voice a low, cultured rumble that felt utterly out of place in Hollow Creek. His eyes would linger a moment longer than necessary, not leering, but with a strange, melancholic warmth that unsettled her, intrigued her. Soon his presence became another fixture in her days, until one Thursday evening as she was closing, he lingered. The store was empty. The hum of refrigerators filled the silence. Sophia, he said, his voice soft but heavy. She looked up, startled. He knew her name. I need to speak with you privately. He gestured vaguely at the aisles. Not here. Her stomach tightened. About what, Mr. Harrison? She stammered, palms damp against her apron. It's a personal matter, he replied steadily. Would it be permissible for me to call on you at your home? Tomorrow evening, perhaps. Her mind raced. Invite a stranger, a wealthy, much older stranger, into their broken-down house? What would her parents think? What could he possibly want? Alarm bells clanged faintly, but his polite, old-fashioned manner was disarming. And the thought of what his money, his influence might mean, flickered dangerously. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. I suppose so. Around 6. Excellent. He smiled faintly. Thank you, Sophia. And then he was gone. She stood alone in the dim store, heart pounding with fear, confusion, and a strange anticipation she couldn't name. The next evening, right at 6, a sleek black sedan rolled up their rutted dirt road. Michael Harrison stepped out, not empty-handed. He carried a wicker basket brimming with groceries, thick steaks, imported cheeses, fresh fruit, chocolates. Things Sophia had only ever seen in magazines. John and Mary greeted him on the porch. John's face was stern with suspicion. Mary nervously smoothed her apron. Michael was disarmingly courteous. He shook John's rough hand firmly, offered Mary a polite nod, and even spoke kindly to Alex, who lingered awkwardly in the doorway. He presented the basket simply, a small token of appreciation for your daughter's kindness at the store. Inside, they sat around the wobbly kitchen table covered with a faded oilcloth. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Michael didn't waste time on small talk. Clearing his throat, his piercing blue eyes found Sophia's. I will be direct, he said, his voice calm but resonant, cutting through the silence. I am a man of considerable means, but I am alone. I find myself admiring your strength, your quiet dignity, and your devotion to your family. John shifted uneasily, coughing quietly. Mary twisted her apron in her hands. Alex stared wide-eyed. Then Michael spoke the words that shattered their fragile world. I wish to propose marriage. The sentence fell heavy, like a stone dropped into still water. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. Her ears roared. Marriage? To this man, decades older, someone she barely knew, someone who belonged to an entirely different universe? It was insane. It was preposterous. And yet the offer hung in the air, impossible to ignore. I understand this is sudden, Michael continued smoothly, as if he could feel the shock rippling through the room. I am not a young man, Sophia. What I offer is companionship, security. More importantly, his gaze shifted briefly toward John and Mary. I have the resources to ensure your family never wants for anything again. Your father's medical needs, a proper home, opportunities for your brother. All of it permanently taken care of. The room spun around Sophia. Security, no more endless worry about bills, no more fear for her father, whose hacking cough haunted her nights. A future for Alex, a life without the crushing weight of poverty. It was everything she had ever prayed for. But the price, it was her youth, her future, her chance at love, traded for her family's salvation. You can't be serious, John finally croaked, his voice hoarse with disbelief and a flicker of outrage. I assure you I am entirely serious, Michael replied evenly. I don't expect love, Sophia. I ask for your companionship, your respect. In return, I will provide for you and yours beyond anything you can imagine. His eyes met hers again, steady, almost gentle. I don't require an answer immediately. Think about it. Discuss it. I will return in 3 days for your decision. He stood, gave a slight formal bow, and left, leaving behind the overflowing basket of groceries like a physical symbol of the impossible choice he'd laid before them. The silence afterward was deafening, broken only by the frantic pounding of Sophia's heart. That night sleep was impossible. She lay rigid on her narrow bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles. 25 years old. He had to be 65, maybe 70. Wrinkles, liver spots, the faint tremor in his hand when he paid at the store. She didn't love him. She barely knew him. The thought of sharing a life, sharing a bed with him sent a wave of nausea through her. But then the images came. Mary crying softly last winter after selling her mother's locket just to pay for Alex's antibiotics. John coming home defeated when a promised construction job vanished, cheated out of a week's wages. Alex's shoulders slumped, hope slipping away. This wasn't about love. This was about sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice. Hadn't she always wanted to save them? Wasn't this grotesque bargain the chance she'd been waiting for? The thought felt like betrayal of herself, of her own dreams. But the alternative, watching her family slowly crumble under the weight of poverty, felt like another kind of betrayal altogether. Could she condemn them to that life when salvation, however costly, was within her grasp? The question echoed in the darkness, offering no easy answers, only the cold, hard truth of desperation. Morning dawned gray, heavy with storm. Sophia found Mary outside, hanging faded laundry on the line, her movements slow and weary. Mom? Sophia's voice was barely a whisper, thick with tears. What should I do? Mary turned, eyes so like Sophia's deep and sad. She reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. Oh, honey, she sighed. This is your life. Your choice. Don't you dare do this just for us. If it's going to make you miserable, we'll manage somehow. We always have. Sophia nodded, hearing the love in her words. But she also saw the somehow written in her mother's face, in the threadbare clothes swaying on the line, in the weary sigh of the house itself. And she knew with chilling certainty what her answer would be. For them, always for them. Later that day, she gathered her parents and Alex around the kitchen table. The untouched basket of groceries sat nearby, a stark reminder of the decision hanging in the air. I've decided, she announced, her voice steadier than she felt. She met each of their eyes in turn. I'm going to marry Mr. Harrison. John's jaw clenched, his face tight with silent rage. Mary's hand trembled as she reached for Sophia's. Alex shot to his feet, his chair scraping the floor. Soph, no, you can't, he burst out, voice cracking. He's an old man. This isn't right! We'll figure something else out. There is nothing else, Alex, Sophia said gently but firmly, shaking her head. He seems kind, and he promised to help. All of us. She looked at her parents. You've sacrificed everything for me, for Alex. It's my turn now. I can do this. Her parents tried to argue, but their protests were weak, worn down by reality. Sophia stayed resolute. I've made up my mind, she said again, feeling less like a daughter and more like a soldier bracing for war. Finally, John let out a long, ragged sigh. The fight drained out of him. Mary pulled Sophia into her arms, whispering against her hair, "We'll be here for you, baby girl, always." Sophia clung to her, drawing strength from the promise. 3 days later, Michael Harrison's black sedan rolled up the dirt road. Sophia wore her best dress, a simple navy cotton sundress, faded but clean. She'd brushed her chestnut hair until it shone. Her hands shook as she opened the door. Michael smiled, a gentle expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. For a fleeting moment, Sophia's fear eased. He greeted her parents with quiet courtesy, shook Alex's hand. Alex stayed stiff, silent. Then Michael turned to Sophia. "I am deeply gratified by your decision," he said formally. And then, to everyone's shock, he lowered himself onto one knee. The motion was awkward, painful looking for a man his age. "Allow me to offer you my hand and my heart officially." He opened a small velvet box. Inside wasn't a diamond, but a simple silver band. Sophia's cheeks burned as her parents exchanged wide-eyed glances. She managed a jerky nod, unable to speak. Michael slid the cool ring onto her finger. It felt heavy. Strange. Yet behind his age-lined face, she thought she glimpsed something. Kindness. Maybe even loneliness. A sliver of hope flickered. Maybe this wouldn't be a nightmare. Maybe she could at least find peace. Over the following weeks, Michael became a steady presence. He never arrived empty-handed. Warm blankets for winter, books for Alex, a new work jacket for John. He sat with them, drank Mary's tea, and told stories. How he'd built his business after inheriting a modest sum, how he'd traveled the world, how he'd lost his wife to illness years ago. His cultured voice carried the weight of wisdom, of experience, and sometimes of grief. Slowly, Sophia found herself opening up. She spoke of her abandoned dream of college, her love for books, her loyalty to her family. Michael listened closely, blue eyes intent, nodding now and then. "You have remarkable strength, Sophia," he told her one afternoon on the porch swing, the chains creaking softly. "Few people bear hardship with such grace." The words touched something deep within her, something carefully guarded. She began to see past his wealth, past his age, to the man beneath who seemed not only kind but profoundly lonely. The wedding was set for a month later. Mary, with help from neighbors, altered a second-hand gown, white with lace salvaged from an old tablecloth. Sophia stood before the cracked mirror, staring at her reflection. She looked like a bride, but she felt like an imposter. The joy brides were supposed to feel was nowhere. Instead, a heavy ache pressed against her chest. Michael sent money for food and flowers for a small reception at the church hall. Each gesture, however kind, felt like another chain. Another reminder that this wasn't love, but a transaction. What if I can't do this? She thought late at night, staring into the dark. But then she'd see her father coughing, her mother's exhaustion, Alex's defeated eyes, and her resolve hardened again. The wedding day came in a blur. Sophia wore the thrifted gown. Her hair was pinned simply. Alex had picked her a small bouquet of wildflowers that trembled in her hands. "You look beautiful, honey," Mary whispered, resting her hands on her shoulders. "Remember how strong you are." Sophia nodded, but the tears spilled over, hot and stinging. "I'm scared, Mom." The ceremony was held in the cold little church. Sunlight filtered through stained glass. Michael waited at the altar, distinguished in a dark tailored suit, silver hair glowing under dim lights. Sophia walked down the aisle on John's arm, her steps heavy. She spoke her vows in a trembling whisper. When Michael slid the heavy gold band onto her finger, replacing the silver one, a sob broke free. She cried through the rest of the short ceremony, through the walk back down the aisle. The neighbors likely assumed her tears were joy. Only Sophia knew the bitter truth. After the modest reception, Michael whisked her away in his sleek black car. They drove past the mountains to the city, to her new life. The mansion loomed behind iron gates, vast and imposing. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, antique furniture. Uniformed staff bowed silently as she entered. Sophia's faded dress and worn shoes screamed her poverty. She felt like a stray cat dropped into a palace. Michael noticed. He touched her arm gently. "It's a lot, I know. Give yourself time to adjust. This is your home now." Later that night, she excused herself. Her room, larger than her family's entire house, was filled with silk and velvet. Closing the heavy oak door, she sagged against it, the mask cracking. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the vast bed, burying her face in the sheets. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind churned with fear, grief, and the terrifying unknown of this gilded cage. She was Mrs. Harrison, married, and she had never felt more alone. Hours dragged on. The mansion sank into silence, broken only by the slow chime of a distant grandfather clock. Sophia lay stiffly on the enormous bed. The silk sheets were cold, alien. Exhaustion warred with anxiety, and she realized her life had changed forever. Suspended in a miserable limbo, Sophia lay awake, her mind restless. Just as her eyelids finally began to droop, a sound jolted her fully awake, a soft, persistent noise. Running water. It was coming from the adjoining bathroom, Michael's bathroom. She sat bolt upright, her heart giving a sudden, hard thud against her ribs. The sound wasn't loud, just a steady, gentle gurgle, but in the profound quiet of the mansion, it seemed amplified. Is he all right? The thought shot through her mind, sharp and urgent, laced with a pang of unexpected concern. He was elderly, after all. Maybe he had slipped, fallen ill, needed help. Despite the strangeness of their situation, her instinct to care, the very quality that had likely drawn him to her, pushed her to check. Hesitantly, Sophia slid out of bed. Her bare feet sank into the plush carpet. She reached for a silk robe draped over a nearby chair, another symbol of this bewildering new life, and pulled it on over her simple cotton nightgown. Padding softly across the vast bedroom, she reached the connecting door. A thin sliver of light glowed from beneath it. She froze, her hand hovering near the polished brass knob. Was this an invasion of his privacy? Was she overreacting? But then the image of him, frail and maybe in need of help, gave her courage. "Michael," she called softly, her voice barely more than a whisper in the cavernous room. Are you okay in there?" No answer came, only the steady rush of water. Swallowing hard against the knot of anxiety tightening in her throat, she tapped lightly on the heavy wood. "Michael?" The door swung inward, suddenly, smoothly, silently. Sophia instinctively took a step back. Her breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening in stunned disbelief. Standing in the brightly lit doorway, framed like a portrait, was not the elderly silver-haired man she had married just hours before. It was a man who couldn't have been much older than 30, 35 at most. Tall, lean, with thick, dark brown hair slightly damp, falling casually across his forehead. His eyes, the same piercing blue she recognized, were alive with an energy she had never seen before. His face was unlined, his jaw firm, his skin smooth and vibrant. A faint, almost apologetic smile tugged at his lips as he met her gaze. He wore only pajama bottoms. His torso was bare, revealing a physique full of vitality, not frailty. Time seemed to stop. The world tilted on its axis. Sophia stared, her mind desperately trying to reconcile what she was seeing with the man she thought she knew. The eyes, the smile, even the slight dimple in his chin. Yes, those were Michael's. But the rest? Impossible. A stranger stood before her where her elderly husband should have been. Her legs went weak, threatening to give out. She gripped the doorframe for support, her knuckles whitening. Who are you?" The words tore from her throat, raspy and trembling, barely audible. The man, Michael, took a careful step towards her, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "Sophia, please, don't be afraid," he said. And the voice, familiar in tone but now youthful, rich with a resonance that sent fresh shockwaves through her. "It's me. It's Michael." Sophia shook her head violently, backing away until her shoulders hit the cool plaster wall. The silk robe felt suddenly suffocating. "No," she whispered, her eyes darting frantically over his features, searching for some trick some explanation for this terrifying illusion. No, it can't be. You're young. The last word came out as a strangled gasp. This had to be a nightmare, a cruel hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body wouldn't move. Please, Sophia, just let me explain, Michael pleaded. His voice was soft but urgent as he took another cautious step forward. He saw the terror in her eyes, the way she shrank back, cornered. He stopped, keeping his distance. Please, sit down. Let me tell you everything. He gestured toward an ornate armchair near the fireplace. Numbly, mechanically, Sophia obeyed, guided only by his voice. Her legs trembled as she sank onto the edge of the chair, clutching the silk robe tightly around her like armor. Michael pulled up a small ottoman and sat opposite her, leaning forward earnestly, his hands clasped between his knees. I wasn't entirely honest with you, Sophia, he began, his gaze steady. The man you married, the elderly gentleman, that was a disguise. Makeup, a wig, prosthetics to create wrinkles, clothes to make me look stooped and frail. Sophia stared at him, speechless. A disguise? The audacity of it, the sheer scale of the deception was staggering. It sounded like something out of a bizarre movie plot, not her life. But why? She finally managed, her voice barely audible. Michael's expression grew serious. My grandfather. He passed away a year ago. He was very wealthy, but also eccentric. He left me his fortune, but with a very unusual condition in his will. He paused, choosing his words carefully. He wanted me to find a wife. Not just any wife, but someone truly good. Someone who wouldn't be swayed by money. Someone who valued kindness, family, compassion above all else. He leaned closer, his blue eyes searching hers. My grandfather met you once, briefly, months before he died. He'd stopped at the Save-A-Lot on his way through town. He wasn't feeling well. His bags were heavy. You had just finished your shift. You looked exhausted. But you stopped. You helped him carry his groceries out to his car. You waited while he caught his breath. You didn't know who he was. You just saw an old man struggling. You smiled, wished him a good day, and refused the money he tried to offer. A vague memory flickered in Sophia's mind. An elderly man leaning heavily on his car, grateful for her help. Such a small, forgotten moment. He never forgot you, Michael continued, his voice thick with emotion. He talked about the kind girl with the sad eyes at the grocery store. He believed you were genuine, rare. He made it his dying wish that I find you. That I test you. That I see if you were truly who he thought you were. He insisted I approach you disguised, as an old man offering security but not youth or conventional romance, to see if your heart was really guided by compassion, not greed. Tears streamed down Sophia's face, hot tears of anger, confusion, and betrayal. So this was all a test, she choked out, her voice raw. My family's suffering, my fear, my sacrifice, it was all just some twisted game. You lied to me. You tricked me into marrying a phantom. Her emotions broke loose and she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. Michael reached out tentatively, then pulled back, his own face etched with pain. Sophia, forgive me, he whispered. His voice cracked. It started as a test, an obligation to my grandfather. But then I got to know you. I saw your strength, your dignity, how fiercely you loved your family, how willing you were to sacrifice everything for them. I saw your kindness, even towards the old man I pretended to be. And he swallowed hard. I fell in love with you, not with the sacrifice, with you, the real you. At last he reached out again, gently touching her arm. The deception was wrong, I know that. But my feelings are real. Please, give me a chance. Give us a chance. Let's start over, honestly, this time. Sophia slowly lifted her head, searching his eyes. All she found there was sincerity and deep remorse. Her anger clashed with a strange, unexpected relief. This wasn't a loveless future with an elderly man. It was complicated, shocking, but real. After a long silence, punctuated only by her ragged breaths, she slowly, hesitantly, placed her trembling hand into his outstretched one. His fingers closed warmly, firmly, around hers. The next morning, they drove back to Hollow Creek. Facing. Her family terrified Sophia, but Michael stood beside her as they told the unbelievable truth. Shock, anger, and disbelief washed over John, Mary, and Alex. John bristled at first. "You played us all for fools." But as Michael spoke of his grandfather, of Sophia's kindness, of his genuine love and commitment, their anger softened into stunned acceptance. Alex even managed a grudging grin. "Well, I'll be. You're a sly dog, Harrison. Welcome to the family, I guess." Michael wasted no time proving himself. Within a week, he handed her family the keys to a newly renovated cottage, just down the road from their old home. He arranged for top specialists in Charleston to treat John's lung condition. He set up a fund so Alex could attend trade school. Standing on the porch of their new home, watching her family inside, finally free of poverty's crushing weight, Sophia leaned against Michael. The path that had brought them together was paved with lies. But as he wrapped his arm around her, looking toward a future she never thought possible, she felt the first tentative blossoms of hope, and perhaps even love. Their story had been impossibly tangled, born of deception. But maybe, just maybe, it could still have a true and truly happy ending.